You know, sometimes the biggest moves in geopolitics, they're not the ones you see splashed all over the news. They happen quietly, behind the scenes. And one of those just went down, creating this really surprising new alliance that could totally reshape one of the world's most critical waterways.
So when this news dropped, it sent this shockwave, really, through diplomatic circles. And the reaction wasn't anger, it wasn't celebration, it was just this stunned silence. This quote right here just nails the feeling perfectly. And everyone thought, you could do that. This was a bold, out-of-left-field play that absolutely nobody saw coming.
Okay, so what was this move that caught everyone so off guard? Well, here it is. In a world first, Israel officially recognized the state of Somaliland. Now, that might sound simple, right? But trust me, this one little act of recognition has huge strategic consequences, and we're going to unpack all of it.
Okay, but before we really dig into why this is such a game changer, we need to get to know the other player in this alliance, the state of Somaliland.
For decades, right, Somalia, smack dab on the Horn of Africa, has basically been a poster child for instability. The country's been fractured by civil war, and today it's really divided into 3 different self-governing territories.
And this is where things get really interesting. You've got Somalia, the country everyone officially recognizes, but it's just a mess, plagued by chaos. Then you have Somaliland. Nobody officially recognizes it as its own country, it's a self-declared state, but, and this is the key part, it's also the most stable and controlled pocket in the entire region. It's an island of relative order in a sea of chaos.
And that brings us right to the heart of it. This isn't just about politics. It's about pure old-fashioned geography. It's about location, location, location. Because in this game, geography is power. So the big questions are, why here and why now?
So, let's just ask the question head-on. How is it that this small, unrecognized piece of land is actually one of the most strategic points on the entire plan? Okay, just look at a map. Look where Somaliland is. It sits right on the coast of the Gulf of Aden. That gulf is the doorway to the Red Sea, which in turn leads you straight into the Suez Canal. And of course, notice what's directly across the water, the ongoing conflict in Yemen.
So just how critical is this waterway? I mean, really? Well, for starters, a full 9% of all global sea freight, think about that, almost a tenth of everything shipped by sea, has to squeeze through this narrow choke point.
But wait, it gets even crazier. If you look just at container shipping, the literal backbone of global trade, that number jumps to an absolutely staggering 20%. 1/5 of the world's container ships have to sail right through there.
And this is where that prime real estate, well, it becomes a huge vulnerability. This vital shipping lane is constantly threatened by piracy and more from the conflict spilling right over from Yemen. We're talking about attacks from the Houthis who are backed by Iran.
Okay, so let's put the pieces together. You have a stable partner in a totally chaotic region. They're sitting right on top of a critical global choke point, and that choke point is under threat. Now you can start to see how this all fits into Israel's playbook. This wasn't some random act of diplomacy, it was a very, very calculated move.
With this one move, Israel pulls off 3 major strategic wins. It's like a hat trick. First up, they secure access for their own key port in Eilat. Second, they get serious leverage over the Suez Canal, which is a massive part of Egypt's economy. And third, they establish a foothold to directly counter the threats from the Yemeni Houthis, who have already shown they can and will try to block this entire waterway.
But look, this diplomatic recognition, that's probably just the opening move. It sets the board for what comes next. So what's the next piece to be played on this geopolitical chessboard? So what's next? Well, the analysis all points to one thing, the establishment of an Israeli military base in Somaliland. And that, right there, would change the whole game from just having diplomatic friends to having boots on the ground and real control over this vital area. So think about that. One single, quiet, diplomatic handshake has completely redrawn the strategic map of the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea. And that leaves us with one massive question. Now that the board is reset, who's going to be the next to make a move?